There is a story you have heard since childhood. The ant works all summer, gathering, storing, preparing. The grasshopper sings and plays, convinced the warm weather will never end. Winter comes, the grasshopper starves, the ant survives. You're told this story teaches you to work hard and not procrastinate. That is not what the story teaches. The story teaches that actions have consequences, and those consequences are not distributed according to your intentions or your sincerity or even the depth of your belief. They are distributed according to structure. The ant does not survive because it is morally superior to the grasshopper. It survives because it performed a specific set of behaviors that are causally linked to a specific outcome. Now, the grasshopper dies because it performed a different set of behaviors linked to a different outcome. That is not a commandment, it is a description. Aesop did not write his fables as religious instruction. He wrote them as observations. He watched animals, he watched humans, he noticed patterns. The fox who is too clever eventually meets a trap he cannot outwit. The wolf who cries wolf too many times is not believed when the wolf actually appears. The tortoise who moves slowly but persistently reaches the finish line when the hare, who moves quickly but erratically, does not. These are not moral exhortations, they are laws. We do not call them laws because they are written in a codex. We call them laws because they operate with the same consistency as the law of gravity. Drop a stone, it falls. Lie repeatedly, your credibility collapses. Both are causal sequences, both are predictable, both are avoidable. Consider the fable of the frog and the ox. A frog sees an ox grazing in the meadow, and he is impressed by the ox's size. He wants to be that large. He begins to puff himself up. He asks his children, "Am I as big as the ox yet?" They say no. He puffs more. He asks again. They say no. He puffs until his skin stretches to its limit and bursts. The moral is usually rendered, do not try to be what you are not. But that is a paraphrase. The actual mechanism is more precise. The frog has a structural limit. His skin has a maximum surface area, his lungs have a maximum capacity, his body has a maximum volume. These limits are not suggestions, they are physical facts. When the frog exceeds them, the frog ceases to exist as a frog. The frog did not violate a commandment, he violated a boundary condition. This is what Aesop understood that many of his interpreters missed. The fables are not allegories in which animals stand in for humans and moral lessons are tacked on at the end. The fables are experiments. They isolate a single variable, greed, deception, diligence, hubris, and run it to its logical terminus. The outcome is not a judgment, it is a result. Now consider the fable of the scorpion and the frog. The scorpion needs to cross a river. He cannot swim. He asks a frog for a ride. The frog hesitates. "If I carry you, you will sting me and I will die." The scorpion replies, "If I sting you, we will both drown. That would be irrational." The frog agrees. Halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog. As they sink, the frog asks why. The scorpion says, "I cannot help it. It is my nature." Now, this fable is usually read as a tragedy of character. The scorpion is evil, the frog is naive. Evil cannot reform itself. But the scorpion's statement is more interesting than that. It is my nature. He is not claiming moral justification. He is claiming causal necessity. Given what he is, he could not have done otherwise. The fable is not about morality, it's about ontology. Certain natures produce certain behaviors. Those behaviors produce certain outcomes. The outcome was contained in the nature from the beginning. The ant does not become the grasshopper. The scorpion does not become the frog. You cannot violate your structural limits and survive. You cannot act against your nature and escape the consequences. Aesop is often dismissed as children's literature. This is a category error. The fables are not simple because they are unsophisticated. They are simple because they are reductionist. They strip away the complexity of human rationalization and expose the underlying mechanics. We tell ourselves stories about why we failed. The market shifted, my partner let me down, the timing was wrong, I did my best. Aesop says no. You did not prepare. You did not verify. You overestimated your capacity. You trusted someone whose nature was incompatible with your safety. The fable is the audit. It does not care about your excuses. It only cares about the data. So, you must decide if the fables are merely traditional stories with moral lessons. They are optional. You can take them or leave them. They express the values of a particular culture at a particular time. They have no authority beyond persuasion. But if the fables are observations of causal structure, they are not optional. They are as obligatory as the law of non-contradiction. You cannot opt out of cause and effect. You cannot vote against gravity. Now, The Ant and the Grasshopper is not a poem, it is a physics problem. Given summer is finite, given energy must be stored or expanded, and given the future is uncertain. Prove the optimal strategy is preparation. The grasshopper chose entertainment over storage. The outcome was not a punishment, it was a derivation. There is a further implication, one Aesop never states explicitly, but built into the architecture of every fable. If behaviors have consequences that are as regular as physical laws, then the universe is not neutral. It is structured to reward certain patterns and penalize others. The ant is not lucky, the grasshopper is not unlucky. The ant aligned itself with the structure, the grasshopper did not. This does not prove that the structure was designed, but it does prove that the structure is real. It is not a social construction, it is not a cultural preference, it is not a religious belief, it is a fact as measurable as the coefficient of friction. Now, here is what you may not have been told. You were taught that morality is about choice. You choose to be good or you choose to be evil. You choose to work hard or you choose to be lazy. You choose to tell the truth or you choose to lie. The fables suggest something different. They suggest that morality is about alignment. The ant is not morally superior to the grasshopper. The ant is simply in sync with the way the world works. The grasshopper is out of sync. The difference is not in the will, the difference is in the fit. Now this shifts the entire framework. If morality is alignment, then the question is not what should I choose? The question is what is the structure and how do I align with it? The first question is about agency. The second question is about truth. And truth in this framework is not a set of propositions you assent to. It is a set of structures you adapt to. You can deny gravity all you want, you will still fall. The Greeks had a word for this. They called it hamartia. You have heard this word translated as sin. That translation is not wrong, but it is misleading. Hamartia comes from archery. It means missing the mark. You aim at the target, but your arrow flies wide. The error is not moral, it is technical. Your form was incorrect. Your aim was off. The wind was not accounted for. Sin, in this original sense, is not rebellion. It is miscalculation. The grasshopper did not rebel against the winter. The grasshopper simply failed to calculate that summer ends. The frog did not rebel against its own anatomy. It simply failed to calculate that skin has limits. The scorpion did not rebel against its nature. It simply failed to calculate that the river does not suspend biological imperatives. They missed the mark. They miscalculated. They treated the structure as negotiable. It was not. So here's what you've learned. You have learned that the fables are not moral exhortations. They are causal analyses. They isolate behaviors and track them to their necessary outcomes. You have learned that these outcomes are not punishments. They are derivations. Given the premises, the conclusion follows necessarily. You have learned that the structure of reality rewards certain patterns and penalizes others. This structure is not a human invention. It is discovered, not created. And you have learned that the ancient word for missing this structure is hamartia. Not rebellion, not evil, miscalculation. The target is there, the arrow is in your hand, the rain is still falling. The question is not whether you have missed the mark, the question is whether you are willing to learn to aim. Thank you.